Good morning. I'm here with Caitlin to warn you that we're all going to go extinct. However, before that, I've got some less important stories, like the reason we exist anyway, which I've been hearing about all my life. I mean, one of the fundamental problems in physics and cosmology is one that Feynman originally was going to write his thesis about, which is why there is more matter than antimatter, because as far as we can tell, all the laws of physics are symmetric. And so the Big Bang should have produced equal amounts of matter and antimatter. And that obviously is not true. We live in a world made of matter. There's almost no antimatter at all. And they've hunted very vigorously for a source of this. Now, the main hunt has been in particle colliders, like the Large Hadron Collider, trying to reconstruct extremely hot conditions, like at the beginning of the universe, where it had measured some asymmetry in those forces. But this one is a new technique I hadn't heard of before. They used computers to hunt through millions of galaxy clusters, and they found a common sort group of galaxy clusters that contains only 4 galaxies, and they showed that they are not symmetric. They may form a tetrahedron, and somehow there's a way for it to have one-handedness or the other-handedness. One mirror image of it is much, much more common than the other, which is a large-scale demonstration of the same effect, that there was some asymmetry in the physics that applied during the inflationary period at the very beginning of the universe, which caused one type of reaction to be more likely than another. And so that's very interesting. Of course, you don't have the details from this, but it does back up the general principle that there is some fundamental asymmetry in the laws of physics that applies under those extreme conditions, which is no longer apparent under our conditions. So anyway, that's the origin of the universe and cosmology, which interests some of us, although one could say it's nonsense. But anyway.
Well, I appreciate your attempts to disprove God.
Well, it all religion and physics and cosmology all end up in about the same place.
Mhm.
I mean, you could argue that this is the hand of God, and who can say it isn't?
Yes.
um, all right.
Let's
And
let's take let's take God out of the creation of the universe. I think that sounds good.
that's what some people interpret this as, yes.
Yes.
Other people would argue, like religious mystics would argue, that this is just the details of the hand of God, and this is just as good as studying the Torah.
Mhm.
It's but it certainly doesn't have anything. It doesn't offer any support to this idea of a personal God that is like a human that cares about your life. It's just the concept that the universe came about in being some way, and perhaps you'd like to anthropomorphize that force as having a personality or something, and maybe not.
There we go. That's the statement I was waiting for to alienate about half our audience. Perfect.
Well, I mean, you should be able to alienate them all. We might as well alienate them all, since we're all just going to go extinct. Anyway, so however, first you've got the information that everyone is a programmer now.
Yeah, so this isn't really new information. So CNBC has this article written by Lin Hui Jui, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced their name. And it's about NVIDIA saying that everyone is now a programmer. And we've seen this before with ChatGPT, where you ask ChatGPT to write a program and it writes a Python script or a bash script for you. And and anyone can do this now. Anyone can write a program, very simple program using large language models. And that's great. But seeing this article made me think about something that I kind of want to discuss on the podcast, which is if you go back to the 1980s, back when personal computers were starting. So I have a replica Commodore 64. And what struck me about it is when you boot it up, you get thrown right into BASIC. And the idea behind this computer is that, oh, you're just going to write all your own software and it'll be great. And of course, most people were like, hell no. We're not
Well, they
going to.
had these modules you would buy to plug in, so you
Yeah.
could use it like a Game Boy.
Yeah, exactly. But the idea was in this early system, so you're gonna write a program. And apparently like DOS also came with a version of BASIC. And the idea was like, oh, well, it'll just be so easy to program, and but of course that no one wanted to write in BASIC, and I don't blame them. This was before
Basic
Python.
was awesome. I loved Basic.
This was long before Python. And so, and but when programming becomes so easy that you don't really need to understand the intricacies of what's going on behind the hood, right? You don't have to understand the math. You don't have to know how to read the documentation. You can just say to the computer, make me a program that calculates pi up to the 100th digit. And, the computer knows exactly what to do and spits it out for you. This is going to,
You do that? I wonder if you ask
yeah.
ChatGPT a question like that, will it figure it out?
In fact, we can do that right now. Let's do it. Let's go to
Yeah.
ChatGPT. Look through my search history there. Try ChatGPT. Write a program in, let's say Python, to calculate pi to the 100th digit. Here we go. Use the MP math function.
No, well, that's looking kind of reasonable.
Will it actually run? I don't know.
Most of the code I get from ChatGPT will not run, but
yeah, most code is close enough, enough that I can sort of like one of the things that's really useful for ChatGPT when I ask it to give me code isn't the code itself, but this first line here, imports MP math.
yeah.
Then I'm like, okay, that's the library I should be looking at and checking out. And
But
then I look.
that means you need to actually be a coder to use it.
Right. But it's going to get better over time. And we can test if this works. Let's see.
Mm-hmm.
Me. I want to hide my personal chat before I start sharing my desktop here. Let's see, share desktop. Will this work?
Just looks
No.
black.
Oh, there we go.
No, there we go.
Oh, wait, hold on.
A desktop with
okay.
You could probably open a terminal or something,
I absolutely can.
or Google Colab or something.
Look, this is even easier. So if we now pi.pi, see what I did there?
Yes. Is
Okay.
this Ubuntu?
This is Arch.
Oh, okay.
By the way, did you know that I run Arch Linux? Because I'm such a great computer person. I know how to run Arch Linux. So Python 3 pi.pi. But there we go.
Well,
It
okay.
works. Hey,
Okay, well, I'm impressed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Copy paste. Okay, so yeah, didn't have to do any changes there. So anyways, I was thinking about how this is going to fundamentally change how we interact with computers, in particular because this will sort of fulfill the original promise, which is that we're not just going to be downloading other people's work. We can just tell the computer what we want. It'll spit out the program. And it'd be even easier, assuming Microsoft, and I'm sure Microsoft's already eyeing this, they're going to integrate AI with Windows. And you can just say, Windows, hey, I need a program to calculate pi to the 100th digit. Boom.
But to be fair, all ChatGPT is doing is basically Googling Stack Exchange. And
yes.
I mean,
and that's what real human coders do too. I mean,
yeah.
Now, if you are experienced enough, you go to Stack Exchange, you look at what they did, and then you read the documentation on the functions to verify that what they're doing is correct.
Oh, you do?
That's the secret that most coders don't know.
I usually don't do that.
Yeah, yes. So you understand exactly if there's any part of the code you don't understand, make sure you understand it, put in your program. Now, most coders do not do that second step, which is why I have a job as in security. But ChatGPT will read Stack Exchange, give you a basic program, and like I said, this is going to really fundamentally change the way we use computers because now we can go back to that original promise, which is, and you tell a computer what you want, and it creates the program for you. You want to make a game about finding a criminal named Carmen Sandiego through time. Maybe one day you can just ask the computer to make it. And there is this joke in Futurama where the people on the Enterprise on Star Trek would say to the holodeck, I'm going to program the holodeck, and they would say to the computer, make this room with a desk and a chair and everything. And there is a joke in Futurama where where one of the people had their own holo programs, and they said it took like 10,000 lines of BASIC. the
Yeah.
program, but what's really have been surprising is that future of Star Trek where you're just talking to the computer and telling the computer what you want, and the computer then generates the programming underneath for you, may be the reality of how we interact with computers moving forward. So big
Yeah.
changes ahead.
All right. Fair enough. Well, I was entertained by this one. People always argue about which VPNs to use, and this is like the worst case. So there's something called Super VPN, which is apparently a pretty shady Chinese product that actually lies about what company produces it and doesn't answer questions. But anyway, on top of that, they logged everything and leaked it. Hundreds of gigabytes, 100 million downloads for this thing on the app, Google and Apple Store, and they just found a database with 133 gigabytes of data, including IP address, user information, the servers and websites they've been going to, unique numbers, and so on, which is, just what they say. We don't log anything. Well, these guys not only log everything, but dump it in a public bucket where everybody can find it. So this is your worst nightmare. So I wonder if you want a VPN, it would be a whole lot better to just make your own. But anyway, that's our worst case shown to be true. And now we get to the most important story of all time, the risk of extinction.
Well, I wouldn't call it the most important story of
What
all
could be
time.
more important than that?
I heard that McDonald's might be bringing back Szechuan chicken next year.
I didn't know they ever had
They
Szechuan.
they had like the Szechuan sauce for their chicken nuggets.
That might be more important actually than this.
Yeah. But anyway, so top AI researchers, according to The Verge, are predicting the end of humanity. And so this is an article written by, I want to give them credit, James Vincent. So there's a 22-word statement about a bunch of high-profile AI designers, CEOs, etc., talking about the possible extinction of humanity because of AI, which, I kind of expect this sort of rhetoric from conspiracy theorists who are, worried about vaccines and all this stuff. I don't expect it to coming from the industry itself, and so this gave me a little bit of pause. So the article states the 22-word statement, trim short, says, quote, mitigating the risk of extinction from AI should be a global priority alongside other societal scale risks, such as pandemics and nuclear war. So I'm not quite sure exactly how AI is going to cause us to go extinct. But I guess the thinking is that humans have been the dominant intelligence on Earth for the past few thousand years, at least the last 20,000 years, and supplementing it with AI that we fully control, that will supposedly be smarter than us, and be completely dependent on us for power and its livelihood and its entire existence is somehow going to lead to our existence. I don't know. But apparently people are very worried about this, and maybe, I don't know, maybe they've been watching too much Terminator.
I think the interesting thing to me, it seems to me ridiculous to even compare this to nuclear war. But anyway, the point is, I think the reason they're saying this is just because nobody can actually do anything, and now they will appear to have virtue signals and appear to be like paying attention. And we were talking about this before.
No, I'm a bit more cynical than that. I think these people are in positions that if the government were to create restrictions on AIs,
Right.
they would be the ones that could circumvent it, meaning they would have the resources to continue research and everything. But the independent researchers that would want to get on the ground floor, who would have to then go through a whole bunch of government red tape, probably couldn't do it. And so my feeling is that if there is a sort of ulterior motive, it's not virtue signaling, it is wanting government regulation to kill competition.
Yeah, well, possibly. There was also that report that leaked out from Google a week or two ago where they said, in fact, they don't think proprietary AI is going to survive. Open source AI is going to overtake it and become dominant.
Right. But if there are laws against open source AI because it could cause us to become extinct.
If that
Mm,
can somehow swing it that way, yeah.
yes, yes.
And you know, the thing that it all seems to me incredibly premature. You can't really make laws about something until you have it. And we don't
Right.
even know what it's going to be. Certainly nothing remotely of what we have now is at all going to cause us to go extinct. It's in the realm of science fiction if it develops a whole lot further, but then you don't know what you're talking about. It's like talking about life as we know it. Well, what would life as we don't know it be like?
Right. And also, yeah, I mean, we have no data. So
Yeah.
it would be like, y- worrying about global warming in the 1860s. It's like, yeah, even if they're right, it's just too premature.
Yeah, and you know, we already have generic laws like you're not allowed to manufacture a product that harms people or you can get sued or something. And that's about all you can say at this point is don't make something awful that hurts people. That's about all you
Yep.
could say.
This also could be part of the hype machine that they could be saying it's just to get the attention of the public, saying this is so powerful, it could cause us to go extinct, like Elon Musk type, grandeur.
It probably will make their stock go up. Wow, this
Yeah.
sounds like a great thing. It's so powerful, it's going to destroy the world. We could get in on the ground floor.
Yep. It's the Cold War 2.0, baby. Let's make money.
Yeah, yeah. Well, anyway, I didn't know this. Starting in August, the US government is going to ban incandescent light bulbs, which sort of surprised me. I have a sort of feeling that this is kind of an overreach of government, but I wonder how they can do that. Are they trying to claim incandescent light bulbs are so extremely dangerous that they're killing people or something? I mean, it seems to me like it's pretty draconian for the government to totally ban them, but they say they waste energy and that's enough. And of course, they do use more energy. Anyway,
There's lots of things that the government says you cannot sell. Like for some reason, I cannot sell my poison and label it as vitamins at the grocery store.
that's
I don't know
but I
why.
don't but I don't feel like incandescent light bulbs represent that kind of gigantic threat to people.
Yeah, but I also can't sell anything like electronic without having it tested by the FCC first.
Well, there's a reason for that. It's a public nuisance, but if I have an incandescent light bulb, how does that harm my neighbors?
It's a
Only
public nuisance by using up more electricity than you need to use.
that is apparently the argument that won, and therefore we ought to outlaw a whole lot more things.
We
If you're going to go by that standard,
we probably should. I mean, the fact of the matter is that LEDs are cheaper and better for the environment. So yeah.
well, sure. But this is where you get down to the Fox News stuff, where you might as well start by outlawing hamburgers at this point because they're certainly causing a lot of harm.
I think that might be something we might be looking at, or at least raising the cost significantly, especially with alternatives being pretty good nowadays with
Well,
the
see, now
fossil
that's more
free.
like
Yeah,
cigarettes. They didn't outlaw them. They just
yeah.
started taxing them and putting warnings on them. You could do that with light bulbs. It just seems like banning them entirely is really extreme. I'm surprised the US government has the power to do that. That doesn't
They do.
seem
No, no, the US government absolutely has the power to, say what can and cannot, be put on the market for various reasons.
well, they ought to, in my opinion, they ought to have much better reason than that. And this is why the Fox News people freak out about maybe they'll ban gas stoves and ban hamburgers and stuff, because they also have, you could argue they do some harm, but you know, they ought to have to do a lot more harm than this to be totally banned, in my opinion. But
The
people forgot
problem
to ask me.
the problem is that there is a cheaper, better alternative.
Then that should win in the marketplace without the government needing to do anything.
You would think. You would
And that
think.
is the logical solution.
You would
And
think. And yeah, and I agree. I agree. Like there's no reason to completely ban it. There might be some legitimate uses for incandescent bulbs, but if you just raise the price and make it
yeah,
like
see,
20
I
bucks a book.
and I think there are. There's people who prefer them. I don't much like these glaring LED lights and you know, I can see how you know people ought to be able to make the choice. Now you can lock your door and have your secret forbidden LED light or candle. How about candles? Candles make much better light. Are you going to outlaw them?
I they can be fire hazard in some
Sure.
situations, but
And they put out smoke and stuff. They probably
yeah,
put out more CO2, I imagine.
yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, no, I agree. It should probably be more of a taxing and more expensive. Because, like I said, I think there probably are spaces where you might want incandescent bulb, but I can't imagine anyone who would prefer an incandescent bulb to an LED bulb as just their general lighting.
Well, the LED bulbs I see are just like the compact fluorescents. The light is very bright, white, and glaring and sort of horrible.
The,
Not as
the
pleasant as the old incandescent light.
the problem is that you can get LEDs that are like deep yellow, that imitate not fluorescence, that imitate incandescence, like to a point. You can get LEDs that are more, that you can see the filament, so it looks like an old Edison type bulb. I mean,
Well,
these are
I'd like to see them fix the color. That's what bothers me. The cheap ones that people are putting in around me have a very unpleasant color.
right. So when you go to the store and you look at LEDs, they'll tell you the color temperature, and you can get the color temperature that works. And in general, you want a sorry, you want a lower color temperature for most spaces,
Right.
except for workspaces. Then you want like a sort of mid-range color temperature. So like at a workspace where you're where you're doing like desk work, you would have, that's the only place you would ever have a sort of white glaring LED.
Mm-hmm.
But in most places in your house, you look for lower temperature LEDs. Um,
Yeah.
but there's no reason to use an incandescent. I mean, and if your main reason of using an incandescent is that they quote unquote look better, then you just, I hate to say it, but you really need to figure out how to properly research and buy LED bulbs.
Well, maybe I'll do that. Anyway, all right. And you've got a Chinese chip being a knockoff.
Yeah, no, I was surprised.
I'm not.
There's so let me pull up the article and give them credit. So Chen Pan over in Beijing has this article from the South China Morning Post talking about a Chinese firm. Who was it? It was like Power something, Power. Uh, uh,
Power leader, I guess.
Power Leader. Yeah, I don't know. Um, but they developed their own x86 compatible chip. Yes, Power Leader. So Shenzhen-based Power Leader decided to make their own chip, and they put it out on the market. And this is not the first time a third party, of course, has made an x86 chip. There's been plenty. There was AMD and Cyrix and a few others. And AMD licensed out their designs a few years ago to like some other people, some other Chinese people. But anyways, Power Leader said, "Oh yeah, we're gonna make our own chip. It's gonna be fantastic." Well, there hasn't been any detailed forensics on this chip, but people have run Geekbench. And what's very interesting is that Geekbench runs exactly the same on this chip as an Intel i3 10105 Comet Lake CPU. So that tells us that it's very likely, I know, Pikachu shock face, that Power Leader may have stolen US designs and are using it to create their own chips.
Yep. But of course, that's just how accurate is that test? Does that really tell you it's identical inside?
That's what I'm saying, is that it's just a preliminary test.
Mm-hmm.
If they really want to figure out what's going on, someone's going to have to delid that chip
All right.
and compare it to an actual i3 10105. But it is very unlikely that the scores would be the exact same across.
Well, this is only the 1000th time they've just totally stolen stuff and cloned it.
Yes. So it does look like just intellectual property theft straight up. Which, you would think by now that, one of the things that sort of worried me as an American, as all these companies move production to China, is that we Americans are losing the ability to produce our own chips. That there's a certain amount of skill set and technical and industry knowledge required to fab your own stuff. Right.
Yeah.
And so there are things like figuring out the best way to make sure there's no dust in your factory, making sure you know how to run the latest equipment, knowing, little techniques for, how to pick up chips off the off the conveyor belt without messing them up. And there's a good way to do this that we've learned from China, which is surprisingly use chopsticks. um, yeah, you can use chopsticks to pick up chips off the belts and do stuff with them. Anyway,
That's
uh,
better.
yes, then like using your hands and stuff. Yeah,
Oh, well, sure, but isn't there some way to make like a mechanical claw or something?
that's what I'm saying. There's little industry, little secret know-hows and stuff like that. You just pick up from doing it. And if we ship it all overseas, we lose that ability to do it ourselves, which I think having some independence is good, right? And I know Intel has some of their own fabrication stuff in the United States, but really we should be having our own stuff made in the United States, not because America's number one, we gotta make jobs. It's just a matter of like making sure that Americans have the skill set that we can be independent if things ever go south with China or if China becomes destabilized. We
Yeah.
want to be able to say like, okay, well, we like working with China, but we can do things ourselves. Like
Yeah, they did pass the CHIPS Act a year or two ago for that reason, mostly motivated by the supply chain shock of COVID.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Like we should be able to stand up our own stuff really quickly. If something happens to the Chinese factories, we need to be able to step in.
Yeah.
And other countries do too. This isn't just an American thing. I think every country should have their own fabs and their own ability to produce, their own goods and stuff like that. That relying
Yeah.
on is, yeah. Anyway, but yeah, stealing intellectual property though is just, yeah.
The current hot button between us and China, among others. Anyway, I just was charmed by the last one here. So Madonna is apparently going to retire. She's doing her last concerts, and her last concert is going to be going to Tennessee and putting on a drag show, hoping to get arrested on stage. So I think this is pretty charming and very in character for her. So
I never thought Madonna's last show would be her dressed up as a man, but I fully endorse this.
yeah. Oh, she would typically have dancers who might very well be men dressed as women or something. She'll do something to be as annoying as possible.
Yeah, no, Madonna, I mean, I don't know how she does it. She's like really old and she looks gorgeous still. I mean, and so she could totally go on stage and be beautiful and stuff. But her last one being dressed up as a man and doing drag, oh, that'd be awesome.
Well, speaking of how she remains beautiful, she's had so much cosmetic surgery that now she is trying to quickly have it dissolved out of her face to achieve a more natural look for her last concert. So apparently she's had a lot of work done.
Oh, I bet. I bet.
Yeah. That's how you do it. I remember
when you're a star, yeah.
I remember 15 years ago, I heard Dolly Parton talking about this. She said, this God made plastic surgeons for a reason. That's what they're there for.
She is not a freak of nature. She's a freak of science. Get it right, people.
Well, I think both. But she's long attitude.
Well, I mean, her talents make her a freak of nature, but her appearance is a freak of science.
Yes. Well, uses performance enhancing drugs like so many other athletes.
Yeah, no, it would be great if more women who are big stars would give more realistic expectations for beauty in older age, like Star Trek Picard season 3 came out and they had Gates McFadden come on, and she looks great, but it's obvious she had some plastic surgery, and I'm like, why? It's like you'd probably look fine even without it, But it's something pushed on these stars, right? That if you want to be good in your industry as you age as a woman in like Hollywood, you're expected to get plastic surgery, and it's like I think maybe we should start thinking about whether or not we should force people into surgery for their jobs. Elective surgery for their jobs.
Yep, that's our American obsession with youth, which I think will probably decline as the average age of Americans gets much older.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's it for this one, and we'll have another one on Friday.